true meeting, a meeting of hearts and minds. This is the only way to awaken ourselves and others.
This year, C20 working groups will focus on integrated holistic health, mind, body, and environment, sustainable and resilient communities, climate, environment, and net zero targets, education and digital transformation, gender equality, technology, security, and transparency, lifestyle for environment, preservation and conservation of traditional arts, crafts, and culture, human rights as human values, revival of rivers and water management, seva, sense of service, philanthropy, and volunteerism. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family. Diversity, inclusion, and mutual respect. SDG 16 and promoting civic space. Delivering democracy through participatory governance.
You are the
understand their respective roles better and supplement each other rather than engaging in conflicts. This year, the C20 symbolizes the flame of hope, self-motivation, and selfless service.
Amma is grateful to the Indian government for arranging such a high-quality meeting. All
Hello, Amrita ma'am. Hello, Amrita ma'am. Hello, Sajeev sir. Hello, ma'am.
Hi, Prashant. Thank
Hi.
you for having us.
Yeah, sure. Hello, Mahesh ji. Hello, Mahesh.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Yes.
Nice having you here. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Same here. Yeah.
Krishnan, you can play this thing.
Sir, just give me a second, sir. Actually, I didn't hear you. What did you say? Can you tell one more time?
You can start the thing. We are on time.
the issues raised here are vitally important. This should go beyond a mere physical meeting and become a true meeting, a meeting of hearts and minds. This is the only way to awaken ourselves and others.
This year, C20 working groups will focus on integrated holistic health, mind, body, and environment, sustainable and resilient communities, climate, environment, and net zero targets, education and digital transformation, gender equality and disability, technology, security, and transparency, lifestyle for environment, preservation and conservation of traditional arts, crafts, and culture, human rights as human values, revival of rivers and water management, seva, sense of service, philanthropy, and volunteerism. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family. Diversity, inclusion, and mutual respect. SDG 16 and promoting civic space. Delivering democracy through participatory governance.
You can play the slide, Krishnan.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Thank you. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending upon whichever time zone you are in. Namah Shivaya from the C20 working group. A very warm welcome to one and all for this policy dialogue on multilingual internet. We'll start the proceedings with a prayer. I request Unnikrishnan to do the honor.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Loka samastah sukhino bhavantu. Loka samastah sukhino bhavantu. Loka samastah sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om.
Thank you, Unnikrishnan, for that prayer. For all of the benefit of our international participants from various CSOs and organizations, the meaning of the prayer is, let there be peace and tranquility for all the beings in this world. That is the meaning of the prayer that was rendered by Mr. Unnikrishnan. Please move to the next slide. Today we are having this C20 policy dialogue on the multilingual internet. Just a few slides and a few background information on what is Civil20. Civil20, or C20 in short, is one of the official engagement groups of the G20. There are many official engagement groups of G20 like Women 20, Startup 20, Business 20, Think Tank 20, Youth 20. And perhaps Civil 20 is the one with the maximum participation and the most wide range of working groups, focusing to give a platform to the civil society organizations, the CSOs, and the non-governmental organizations, the NGOs, to voice their aspirations and voice it to the leaders of the G20. As you saw in the video, the tagline of C20 is, "You are the light." The logo symbolizes hope, self-motivation, and selfless service. We want all the CSOs, the civil society organizations, to come together, to collaborate, to deliberate, to contribute to the policy, find solutions, and make the world a better place to live with collective efforts. Please move to the next slide. The Civil 20 or the C20 has Her Holiness Shri Mata Amritanandamayi Devi, who is affectionately called Amma, or the hugging saint worldwide, as the chair. To speak a few words about Amma. Amma is a world-renowned humanitarian, a winner of the Gandhi King Peace Prize, and she has hugged an world record, I would say, 40 million people across the world, giving them peace and solace. Amma heads an international charitable organization which is present in almost every country in the world, globally known as the Embracing the World Charities. And in India, the Indian arm is the Mata Amritanandamayi Mutt. Incidentally, Amma is also the Chancellor of Amrita Vishwavidyapidam University, which has been ranked as the #1 private university in India. The Civil 20, please move to the next slide. The Civil 20 has 15 working groups. You saw in the video. Of these 15 working groups, 5 of these working groups are hosted and coordinated by Amrita University. Please move to the next slide. The 5 working groups that are hosted by Amrita University are Technology, Security and Transparency, Education and Digital Transformation, Gender Equality and Disability, integrated holistic health, and sustainable and resilient communities. Totally, there are 15 groups, and Amrita University is coordinating and hosting 5 of these groups. Our working group, Technology, Security and Transparency, which is hosting this policy dialogue, is headed by Dr. Krishnashree Achyutan, Dean of Amrita Vishwavidyapita. Now, talking to you about the process of Civil20, what Civil20 is doing. Each of these working groups are working towards policy formulation, policy inputs. And at the end of this process, towards the end of the G20 presidency of India, will be given to the G20 leaders. We can see a timeline of this process in the next slide. Please move to the next slide. As far as the process is concerned, from January to April, we have organized several policy dialogues, and these policy dialogues have been aligned to various topics, very topical interest areas. Things that are plaguing the society today, like dark web, disinformation, fake news. How the intersection of AI and IPR, cybercrime, crypto issues, privacy issues, how values and technology, the relation between values and technology. And also we have had policy dialogues in our 4 themes. We have identified 4 themes as far as our working group of Technology, Security and Transparency is concerned. These include AI and data for society, technology for empowerment, transparency and trust, and safety and security and resilience. These are the themes of our working group on technology, security and transparency. Please move to the next slide. Next. Yeah, next slide. So the process has started in January, and we have had more than 15 plus policy dialogues. No, just go back. We have had more than 15 plus policy dialogues, and we have taken policy inputs from CSOs. We are almost hitting 100 countries in terms of the CSOs that we have connected to and elicited the policy inputs. We are going to host our international summit, an international conference in the Coimbatore campus of Amrita Vishwavidyapeetham, Amrita University on May 13th and 14th. And we have a host of launches to benefit the civil society. And this process will continue till the late July, when the entire policy pack of C20 will be submitted to the G20 Secretariat and the administration and tabled for the leaders in the G20 summit that is going to happen in September 9th and 10th in New Delhi in India. So this is a nutshell, the process that we are actually moving towards. And this policy dialogue has a galaxy of eminent speakers. Perhaps they are the leaders in this field, in this part of the world, very active in various forums like the Internet Governance Forum, the Internet Society, ICANN. The ICANN is the body that assigns domain names. And we have 3 very eminent people who have, held global and positions in all these, and they are the best people to give these policy recommendations, which we will we will collate, consolidate, and capture for the policy pack to be submitted to the G20. So I wanted to just give a nutshell, the process that is there. And this is a very exciting topic, the multilingual internet. It's a very upcoming and emerging area. Perhaps many of us don't know about the impact or the potential impact, the benefits that can emanate from this multilingual internet. So can you move to the next slide? I will first call upon our first panelist. Please go to the next slide. Next slide. Next slide, the next slide. One more slide. Next slide, move to the next slide. I'm very happy to introduce our first speaker, Amrita ma'am, Miss Amrita Chowdhury, Director of CCAOI. She is an active member and contributor at national, regional, and global internet governance platforms. She's not only the director of CCAOI, she also serves in very senior capacities in global organizations like the United Nations Internet Governance Forum, MAG member. She's the chair of IGFSA, chair of the APRALO, which is again a kind of a civil society group at the ICANN, providing inputs to ICANN, president of the Internet Society India in Delhi. And she's also been a founding member of INSIG and coordination committee or member of the India Internet Governance Forum. She advises youth initiatives such as Youth IGF India. Amrita ma'am, we're very happy to have you here. Over to you. You can stop the slide sharing, Unikrishna. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Prashant Nair, and thank you everyone for having me here to present a bit on the topic which is very close to most of us, which is multilingual internet. So before we deep dive into it, I thought I would like to raise a few points. First, the first point which I would like to raise is that today internet is an integral part of all our lives. And the 2 years of pandemic has actually made us rely on the internet much more, for example, for education, communication, health, earning livelihood, entertainment, and everything. For example, if I take an example from India, even a vegetable seller or even a person whom we call as dhobi, who actually presses our clothes, relies on internet to sell and receive payments. And this is just one example of digital transformation which we are witnessing. The second point is, while internet can be empowering, it also has the capability to create disparity. We all know that internet is the greatest leveler between the haves and the have-nots. However, people who do not have access to the internet, it creates a huge exclusion barrier since we are relying more and more on technology. And this digital divide is widely growing globally. And this brings me to the third point, that if we want to empower everyone, we have to focus on providing access to the rest of the people who are unconnected. We still have more than a little less than half the population, global population, to be connected. And in the Indian context, about 55 to 60% of the people are yet to be connected. While there are various initiatives which the governments have taken to connect everyone, more needs to be done. Even the Indian government has a plan to connect all citizens, by 2024. And the fourth point is, we must remember that most of the people who will come online are not English speaking. Today, most of the content online is in English, but the most spoken language globally is Mandarin, followed by Spanish, and third is English. It is followed by Hindi, Portuguese, Bengali, Russian, and Japanese. And among the other Indian languages, Marathi, Telugu, Tamil, and Urdu feature amongst the top 20 languages spoken globally. And this is as per the 2023 edition of Ethnologue. And even the Indian, for my cough, in the Indian context, if we look at the census of 2011, only 10% of the population used to speak or understand English, and I don't think it has moved even to 20%. So therefore, it is important that we promote internet in the most used, read, or spoken language so that people can come online. Understanding the significance of multilingual internet, that it helps to reduce digital exclusion, We have various initiatives which have been taken by the government, as well as companies. For example, Google, Meta, Amazon, etc., are availing their services in local languages so that they get more people to use them. Similarly, at the global level, we have organizations such as ICANN, which Prashant mentioned a few minutes ago, which actually looks at domain names and numbers, to actually introduce something called the internationalized domain names, which are domain names like, we have www.google.com. Similarly, names in local languages, we have names in Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, etc., as well as email IDs. They have also created a group called as the Universal Acceptance Group, which is actually working to make all these domain names and numbers, which are domain names especially, which are in local languages, compatible in search. I'm sure Satish and Mahesh would be sharing more on this. The Indian government has also been taken a lot of initiatives on it. For example, most of the Indian websites, the state and the central websites, are available bilingually. For example, the central websites have Hindi as the alternate language, and in the state, you have the local language, the regional language out there. There are various other initiatives. For example, handset manufacturers have been told to at least have their smartphone OS available in at least 20 languages, 20 regional languages. And the the central government has formed a task for a particular division in Ministry of Electronics and IT, which is called as Bhashini, which is actually working to bring across different stakeholders so that they can create a public platform which can promote multilingual internet using technology. And I'm sure Mahesh would be speaking more on that. However, while various initiatives are on, and even civil society in their own way is promoting multilingual internet and content, their challenges persist. For example, many of the services are not end-to-end multilingual. For example, if you go to various websites, you may find them in local languages. However, when payments have to be made, those portions are in English. So this creates a challenge for new users for whom English is alien. The second challenge is while inputting multilingual text on devices, it is sometimes cumbersome and it is not so easy. Thirdly, a lot of the multilingual content, which is especially up on government sites, use very formal language, which is normally not used by commonly. And so it may be difficult for people to understand or decipher. So to conclude, I would say that if we want everyone to use the internet in their preferred language, we need to ensure that the services are available in multilingual end to end. We also need to deliberate more on promoting multilingual internet, and especially the challenges, and all stakeholders need to be involved in this discussion, because it is just not the governments or the private sector who can actually come up with solution. It is also civil society who actually come back with the grassroots level information to provide what the users or the new users would want. And lastly, and most importantly, I feel it is very important to ask the unconnected people, what is it that will make them come online, rather than presuming we know it all. And I think that should be the basis of formulating policies which can promote the internet in the language which anyone would enjoy. I think I would stop my intervention here, Dr. Prashant. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Amrita ma'am. Very truly said, especially the CSO voice. Actually, internet governance, multilingual internet are some areas where there is some voice for CSO, but we have seen, across the board, many disciplines, many areas, there is absolutely no voice. This is at least one sector where there is some voice, and definitely more efforts are needed to strengthen them and accelerate more policy interventions by the CSOs. So let's move on to our second panelist, Sri Mahesh Kulkarni. Unikrishnan, can you just play the slide for a second? While the slide is coming, I'll start with the So I'm very happy to introduce Mr. Mahesh Kulkarni, the founder CTO of Ivaris Systems. Again, he is also an active leader and contributor at national, regional, and global internet governance platforms. He's holding several positions currently, such as the co-chair of the Neo-Brahmi Generation Panel of ICANN, member of the Government of India's as well as the FICCI National Task Force on Multilingual Internet and Universal Acceptance, the chairman of the Audio Video Standardization Group of the Bureau of Indian Standards. He has had a long corporate career working in research lab of the CDAC of the Government of India, where he retired as the senior director. He's also won an award from the Honorable President of India. So Mahesh, we are looking forward to listen to you from the various technologies that are the building blocks of the multilingual internet. Unicode and RG, LZR and so on. Over to you, Mahesh. You can stop the sharing, Unikrishnan.
Yeah. Actually, thank you very much for inviting me for a very important discussion, which is related to the policy dialogue on the multilingual internet. And multilingual internet aspect is not something which we are touching today. It has been actually tried, worked out for a very long time. If you really look at it, I'm not going to repeat what Amrita has said basically, but definitely internet has a profound impact on society, especially the economy, the new forms of communication, e-commerce, especially the commerce and the social interaction. So, which necessarily means that it touches all the different people, basically, different strata of people, basically, and digital communication becomes very important. One more important challenge, what I personally feel, is that though internet is all pervasive, it also poses new challenges, especially related to privacy, security, spread of misinformation, which are being still addressed by policymakers. Okay, these are basically the two aspects of the multilingual internet. So when we say multilingual internet, today totally 62% of our population globally are the internet users. That is something really phenomenal. So which means that internet has reached more than the half population of the world. If you look at an Indian side, we have got almost like 687 billion people who are accessing the internet by different mechanisms. Maybe it is from the computer platform, or maybe from the mobile. Mobile penetration has really given a boost basically into that. So when we say multilingual internet, what exactly it means to us is that there are various components of multilingual internet. One is that your whole internet or the computing system has to be first internationalized or globalized, which means that it should adopt certain frameworks which are something called the internationalization framework or a globalization framework, wherein all the languages get supported by default. It's not like a retrofit. So what today is happening is that we are doing retrofit basically, but basically by design, the internet should be multilingual. This is one part. These things were not possible at the time when ASCII was there. ASCII came around 1963, and by 1991, Unicode came. So Unicode is a universal coding standard, which supports almost the current version 15, supports 1.5 lakhs of characters and 161 scripts, which basically represents almost some few thousands of languages. Okay, that's all about Unicode. So Unicode had made it possible that you can now display, store, input, okay, search in your own language. That is possible because of the fact that we are moved from ASCII to Unicode. you are well aware that ASCII was the 7-bit standard. The extended ASCII was the 8-bit standard. While if you look at the Unicode, it is a 32-bit standard basically. So some of the major components of the multilingual internet are, as I explained to you, internationalization and globalization standards one need to follow. And though not immediately, but recently, a lot of focus has been given on the UA part of it, the universal acceptance part of it. And there are two precise components. These are the foundational requirements of any multilingual internet, when we say. So universal acceptance is also becomes a foundational requirement. So what are the other components? One is the infrastructure. So we should have a multilingual support at the infrastructure level. We should have multilingual support at the protocols and a standard level. We should have policies around multilingual internet. We should have technology readiness around multilingual internet. And obviously, as was been told by Amrita, the contents become the king basically. So if the more and more contents are there in a specific language, then the technology readiness becomes higher and higher. Just like, for example, speech-to-speech technology, machine translation technology, or anything for that matter, it all depends upon the data. And the more you create the data, I think these models are going to become more and more useful and efficient basically. So if you look at the importance of the multilingualism, has become extremely crucial aspect, because it will try to bring next 1 billion users online on the network. Okay, 1 billion. The next 1 billion people are going to come on the network, and they are mostly going to come from the non-English speaking countries. So that's a very important aspect, that we will be having more and more people who are being connected, especially from the non-English speaking countries basically. Globally, there are closely around 7,000 languages. In India, if you really look at it, we have got 1652 languages, which are actually, when I use the word 1652, they are actually more than 10,000 people are minimum are speaking those languages or practicing the language. And we have 19,000 plus languages plus dialects. So every 5 kilometers to 10 kilometers, our dialects also change. So we have got actually a great opportunity also, as well as the great challenges in terms of the multilingual internet. So if you look at Indian languages, official, there are 22 scheduled languages. And out of those 22 scheduled languages, we have got a challenge that we use a left to right script as well as the right to left script for writing these languages. So Perso-Arabic family, we have got Urdu, Sindhi, Kashmiri, which are written using right to left. So if you look at a multilingual internet, it should support both these directions basically, and it is truly doing that now. So there is nothing rocket science today that it is not supporting. So fundamentally, now advent of the Unicode, we are seeing that the dream is coming true in terms of the multilingual. Okay, there are some other aspects to be also considered. Okay, so the consumption as well as the creation of multilingual contents are also on rise, and which is boon to the advancement in human inspiring system, which I explained. The advancement in machine learning had led remarkable progress in natural language processing. So there are certain technology advancements which we'll have to look for, though there are a lot of things which have been done. Like you must have recently heard about the ChatGPT, and it is doing an astonishingly and a phenomenal work basically. Probably it is a fear also, and probably it is a boon also in that particular case basically. So there is a lot of machine learning algorithms which are actually helping the NLP field, the natural language generation, natural language understanding, and these are going to be the key areas in near future on the multilingual internet. Okay. And especially the AI field gives computers the ability to understand the human language. I think this is where the crux lies of multilingual internet, that we should be able to understand the language of the person who is speaking basically. So it should be auto. I may be speaking Marathi, but the system should automatically understand I'm speaking Marathi. It should convert that text into whatever language the other person understands and bring back to me in Marathi. So I think we talk about speech-to-speech technologies. So there is a lot of work needs to be done onto that. Okay, a lot of work has already happened, and we are trying to see the fruits of that. On the fundamental side of the multilingual internet, what is exactly required is that, as I said to you, one need to see that what coding you are going to use. So now obviously the Unicode is there, which is supporting that. Then we need to look to see what Amrita also said. Amrita also said that what about inputting? Okay, so inputting now, it is likely, it is. I agree that Indian language writing system is complex, but phonetically it is simpler than English basically. So it is just a matter of education basically. So it has to be percolated into the educational system. The Indian languages teaching has to come into the educational system, rather than talking about, even it is not happening in the engineering colleges level. So we should have courses, good courses on computational linguistics, or we should have good courses on all these aspects of multilingual things which are to be taught to the student basically. Now, as I said, UA also becomes a fundamental requirement, just like Unicode. And there is a lot of work which is happening. The government of India has taken a lot of initiative, and I'm very happy that I was part of the UA initiative from the beginning, basically. And we have got all 22 Indian languages domain names, so you can have .bharat in all 22 language domain names. And now we need to create an ecosystem around that. Okay, there are a lot of government initiatives. The time will be short if I try to speak about all the government initiatives, but you may be aware of TDIL program of Government of India, which actually looks forward to standards, linguistic resources, then encouragement to the researchers, for providing funding to them, then having a policy dialogue, looking at national, international standards. So this is something the TDL has done a phenomenal work on this particular aspect. There were mission mode projects which were being coined by the government, like development of machine assisted translation system, optical character recognition system, online handwritten character recognition system, cross-lingual information access systems. And these are actually bear the fruits just because of the fact that IITs, triple ITs, and all the best of the institutions participated in the development of that. And we are definitely going to see the fruits of those by way of a program called Bhashini, which Amrita also mentioned. Bhashini is a flagship project under the guidance of our Honorable Prime Minister. And a lot of contents is being getting developed, a lot of tools are getting developed, and it is being suggested that the APIs, free APIs and open APIs will be provided so that everybody start using them freely without paying too much of money into that. And then obviously there were certain other aspects like National Translation Mission. A lot of work has happened into the multilingual, but now there is a time to sum it up and actually put it at a one repository so that people start using the same. Industry is also not behind, basically. So if you look at the multinational companies like Google, the Microsoft, even the Flipkarts or even e-commerce, they are promoting Indian language. They are using Indian language. They are trying to reach out to the people by having their product Indian language enabled. I think they have got a business into that. A huge amount of business lies over there if the Amazons and Flipkarts type of stuff start supporting Indian languages. Okay, especially the social networking also has made a humongous change into the way which we are using the Indian languages, especially some of the speech technologies. The matter has become very simple. You can speak out now and send a message, and it's all doable and it is all possible basically in different languages. So what generally, I think I got 2-3 minutes, so I will just sum it up in 2-3 minutes basically. So on the policy side, what the whole multilingual internet is talking about is not, it's a multi-stakeholder initiative basically. And we need to build an ecosystem, though there is certain initiatives have been undertaken, but definitely we need to have a task force, we need to have an ecosystem, and that ecosystem should consist of technical part basically. It should also consist of a social part also, and it should have a political will. So these are three important tasks that we should have: a technical readiness, we should have a social acceptance, and we should have a political readiness. So when we talk about the technical readiness, I think more or less we are moving into that direction. And certain things definitely has to be taken care of by way of standards, by way of policies, and so on and so forth. Especially in social part of it, education. I think the main component which is missing is that we are not teaching anything of multilingual into the educational system at all. That part has to be brought back, and let the child try to use the keyboards, try to use the Indian languages, fonts, and everything put together. Whatever he is trying to do it in English, he should be able to do it in his own language. I think that's a very important. We will, though it is now our generation has gone, let the new generation take over. And a keyboard is just a mindset. Let me tell you, keyboard is going to be remain as a de facto inputting mechanism, but nobody taught you English keyboard, okay, QWERTY keyboard, but you just out of need, you started learning that. Why not? It happens with Indian languages as well. I think it is very simple. It is just a matter of putting some little bit extra effort, that's all. On the political front, basically, it depends upon the policy framework. So we should have an IT policy, basically. Okay, in the IT policy, multilingual policy has to be given a priority over there. Just like you keep a budget for IT, okay, some percentage you keep for the IT infrastructure and so on and so forth. Why don't you keep a budget for multilingual internet? Why don't you keep some budget for localization? Why don't you keep some budget for the translation as a separate budget, basically, and see to it that not necessarily only 3-language formula, but I would recommend that the central website should be in all 22 Indian languages. The state website can be in 3-language formula like English, Hindi, and one regional language. And one should be able to use the technology to convert any language to any language, and so that I should be able to access the Tamil Nadu contents, or I should be accept Gujarati contents so easily. So these are some of the aspects. Definitely we need to take care of that part. Then on the policy matter, though there are certain good policies which have been done, like GIGW policy is there, Government of India guidelines for web. So we should have the universal acceptance into the GIGW. So it should be mandatory. It should be made mandatory that all the Government of India website should be UA ready. So these, as I explained in earlier also, the UA becomes fundamental and a foundational requirement apart from Unicode. So these are only two aspects that if you want a truly multilingual internet, you should have something called the Unicode supporting, and you should have universal acceptance, which are the two major pillars of multilingual internet. Now coming to some of the specific recommendations, basically just 2 more minutes, I will give the recommendation because I understand that I crossed the time. Government department should be encouraged to be the first users of Indian startup products in order to ensure that a large Indic data set is available and generated for them from them, subsequently leading to larger data set. So that's one. We should rely upon the startups. We should encourage the startups those who are working onto the Indian languages especially. Then important point is the increased role of state government for generation of linguistic resources, including data. So why not the state government contribute the data? Why not the state government help develop people to fund certain projects like development of a spell checker, the grammar checkers, and so on and so forth. So state government role is also exceptionally important over this. Making all Government of India services, especially in multilingual. And this is necessarily mean that all 22 languages, though there was a 3-language formula, as well as for the mobile, we were able to actually push through the government to have 22 Indian languages display and 3-language inputting part basically for the mobile. I think similar steps needs to be taken for all the hardwares and software basically. And as I explained, some percentage of the department IT budget can be earmarked for localization for carrying out the activities of translation and localization. One last important point on the Amrita, what she said on translation part of it, though she said that they are very professional translations which are there. I agree with her. But I would like to reterm that basically. So instead of doing translation, I would like to call a term called the transcreation. So you understand the context and then write the context in your own language rather than believing onto the translation per se. Because if you believe in the translation per se, you will have these problems. It will not be a layman terminology. It will be a professional terminology, which I and you will never understand basically. And that's a problem over there. So I would like to definitely use the word something called the transcreation. So you should understand, suppose there is a subject, you read it in whatever language is there, understand that subject, and you now on your own start writing into that language. Finally, at the end of the day, you have to only pass the message. You have to only do the communication. The translation, what is the use of translation? You are supposed to only pass a communication, right? So it is not really required to do each and every sentence by sentence translation over there. So I would like to use the word transcreation basically. And last but not the least, basically, we should have empaneled translation agencies, just like the certain agencies are there basically. So we should have empaneled translation agencies. So all these Government of India website, 8,000, 9,000 Government of India website, they can be translated in different languages in no time. It can be taken as a mission mode projects. Okay, so that's all I would like to say. And thank you for the time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mahesh. It was very extensively you have covered the spectrum of the multilingual internet building blocks, and especially the UA, universal acceptance, and the Unicode importance. I think a lot of exciting opportunities are also there, to research in terms of, having an ecosystem built, over universities, CSOs, government agencies. I think there is a huge, ecosystem possibility. I see it from your, your suggestions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Unikrishan, can you put the next slide? Yeah. So while he's putting the, next, I'm very happy to kind of introduce somebody who I have been looking up to, who is kind of like a mentor to me in the sense that I've been associated with him for more than a decade, Mr. Satish Babu. Mr. Satish Babu has been helping our Civil20 working group in a very, very profound manner, guiding us in various aspects on internet governance. And it is through his efforts that this policy dialogue is actually happening. Just to speak a few words about Satish's resume is very long, but quick, some of the major points to talk. He has been a very passionate free software activist early internet advocate, IT entrepreneur, internet governance practitioner, and development professional. He has been a volunteer in multiple national and international professional societies and technology communities. In fact, my association with him has been when he was the president of the Computer Society of India and the chair of the IEEE Kerala section, which is one of the largest and most active IEEE sections across the globe. As far as the internet governance is concerned, he's been active in the Internet Society, the Internet Governance Forum since 2009. He's been participating as a civil society representative in the ICANN since 2012. The positions that he's holding now is the chair of the Asia Pacific School of Internet Governance, and he's also a co-founder of the India School of Internet Governance. Satish sir, over to you for your thoughts. You can stop the sharing only.
Thanks very much, Prashant. I'd like to share my screen for a single kind of a slide.
Yeah, only Krishnan.
I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah, yeah. It's visible, sir.
Thanks. So actually, I was just back yesterday from Bhubaneswar, where we had the C20 summit, working group summit on gender and disability. It is a very exciting kind of a process, and I was very happy to have participated in it. Now, I'm going to be, Prashant, please stop me when the time is up. I know we're running late.
Sure, sir.
So I'm quickly going to show you some tools. The first is about text input, and we have already seen the keyboard and the issues of right to left, left to right, and top to bottom, which is for a few of the CGK, that is the Chinese, the Japanese, Korean languages. So the keyboard is still the most prevalent way to input, but Indian languages, because of the complexities, have more problems. We also have a number of mobile solutions for this. Handwriting is available on the mobile. If you use Google Translate, you can actually write using your finger, and it recognizes. Related issues of fonts and typefaces. Some of the Indian languages we have difficulties. We used to have difficulties earlier. Now it's not so bad. OCR, there has been some work done by STDAC and others, but we are nowhere near the kind of perfection that the Latin script has achieved. The browsers and DNS, the universal acceptance, which means that emails and URLs behave exactly the same whether they are Latin script or an Indian script or any other script. There are some issues in, currently this level of support, and that is what universal acceptance is all about. For example, if I have a email based on Hindi, like satish@namaskar.bharat in Devanagari, I cannot register that on IRCTC as a new account. That is the universal acceptance gap. And also, when some of the browsers display URLs, it is not the script that is shown, but English, what is called as puny script, which is a Latin translation of the Devanagari or other scripts. So this is about text input. Translation, we have machine translation already multiple. From early rule-based translation approaches, we have now moved on to deep learning and AI. We need dictionaries and thesaurus. Now, dictionaries have this issue of collation order. Now, encoding order of the Unicode code page is not the same as collation. Now, collation simply means like alphabetical order, but for Indian languages. Now, these have to be separately defined. In the initial days of Unicode, this is a big challenge, but now I think we are past this. Okay, with B, we'll go on to speech tools. Text to speech, speech to text, we have already mentioned. Natural language processing has come very far. Subtitling has become an important thing for many people who are visually impaired. Subtitles add a lot of value, and we now need tools. This is not yet very common for Indian languages, even transcription, live transcription tools or subtitling separately. There are some miscellaneous tools that are required, DTP systems. There is one system called LaTeX, which I use heavily. It is not a VCB, or what you see is what you get kind of a system. It is a technical, basically used for scientific papers. It is very powerful. It supports all Indian languages, but it's not very popular because of the difficulty in using it. It is not like using PageMaker or InDesign, but we need, DTP systems for all Indian languages. Transliteration tools. These are ways of converting from one Indian language to another Indian language. And there is a peculiar problem that happens when you have an internationalized email ID, which is email ID in Devanagari. Suppose we send an email to somebody in, say, Europe. They see some strange characters in the name of the from address. They can't make out what this is. Now, if they had a transliteration tool, at least they could figure out what the mailbox was and what the domain side was, etc. So transliteration is actually useful for not just Indian languages, but also for others using these things. We need spelling and grammar tools. And now we have a bunch of AI tools. And if we have time, we'll take a 1-minute demo on ChatGPT because it's mentioned on its ability to handle Indian languages. We need training data sets, which means clean data with metadata in order to train these models. And these are what we're talking about, large language models. We need conversational AI. Now, ChatGPT can actually handle conversations a little bit in Hindi, but not so much in other languages, in Indian languages. AI translation tools, generative AI. Generative AI is a term to kind of describe artificial intelligence that produces things. For example, ChatGPT as an example, or Stable Diffusion, which is a service which you provide a textual representation and it will create an image out of it. Now, Google has just demonstrated a text to video. That means you can describe a video and Google will produce a video by AI. Two other very common and useful services are text summarization and sentiment analysis. We will take a 1-minute demo of ChatGPT, kind of handling Hindi. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, sir, it's visible, sir.
Okay, so we will just ask ChatGPT for a very specific question. Analyze Elon Musk tweets on the 2020 US presidential elections and present the essence of his position. So let's see what ChatGPT. Now, remember that this is a free service. So sometimes the service gets blocked because of very heavy use. So if that's the case, we'll have to just reload the page. It's a network error. This happens when there is a so what this, okay, let me try, so there is a overload. That is why this problem has happened. So there's a timeout for 1 minute. So what happens is it will quote Elon Musk tweets on the 2020 elections, and it will summarize what it feels is the overall position. So then what we do is we say, make a summary of that analysis. And then it will make a very shortened summary of that. And then when you say translate the summary into Hindi, you will find that it generates pretty good Hindi in Devanagari script. So unfortunately, I'm not able to show you because it is heavily loaded, and this happens on the free version of ChatGPT. On the paid version, it is automatically rate limited in the sense there's a heavy kind of load, but I have not taken a paid subscription. So unfortunately, I'm not able to show you, but you can try this yourself. You can give a prompt like this, and then you can ask it to summarize, and then you can also ask it to summarize any website in English or in Spanish or in French or in Japanese into Hindi. And it's able to do, remember the 3.5 version of ChatGPT is only current till September 2021. So any new content will not be kind of handled by it. So this is just to give an idea. I'll try one last time. If it doesn't work, we will have to give it up. Sorry. There is a network error. Sorry. So ChatGPT is overloaded, so it's unable to kind of proceed. So I'll stop here and back to you, Prashant, for any questions or discussions.
Yeah, thank you, Sajeev sir, for giving the perspective on the tools that kind of make this, and of course, ChatGPT is kind of viral across the globe. As I was mentioning, we are actually looking for the policy dialogue, this policy dialogue to get some kind of policy inputs which are kind of clear, measurable, which can be given to the G20. Now, I was also, from our earlier policy dialogues, we came across this fact that, only 10 languages are kind of very prominent on the internet. So what do you think, in terms of the policy, the G20 nations, how do they kind of, work at a macro level to have some policy that will be able to increase this multilingual at a very high level? What do you think, sir, would be the inputs? I'll request each of the panelists to give their views.
Yeah, this is Satish. I can jump in first. So
Yeah.
the reason why I wanted to show ChatGPT was that there is a problem here. The problem is that ChatGPT is able to, for example, pull out information in English and translate it into Hindi, for example. But there is a whole bunch of Hindi content out there that ChatGPT is not parsing. For example, the entire Hindi Wikipedia, it's unable to, it has no information on the entries there. So now the point is Wikipedia content is already existing, and your questions about content that doesn't exist. So we have two problems. One is that we need to promote more content, but secondly, we have to ensure that the content that already exists also has to be processed by these engines so that we can use them. Currently, it's only one way. From English, we can go to Hindi, but not the other way around. And we have content in Wikipedia on almost all Indian languages, quite prolific content actually. So the policy-wise, what can be done? Now, this is market-driven, basically. So unless there is a push-pull effect, so unless there is a demand from the end users, the companies are not likely to invest. So we have to create awareness to the end user, to the companies, saying that this is required. I'll stop here.
Yeah, Amrita, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. I agree to mostly what Satish has said in terms of the market forces working. As a policy level statement which can come up from the G20 could be that nation states realize the importance of multilingual internet for the growth of new users who are supposed to be coming in, therefore promote local language content, as in they acknowledge the importance of local language content or on the internet and promote it. I think that is a kind of statement which can come, and for the growth of local language content, meaningful content, I would add, because content is of many kinds, perhaps a multi-stakeholder approach where civil society organizations are also involved could be a way to look at it. Also highlighting the importance of organizations, business entities to promote the content in the local languages in the countries they serve. I think that is a kind of high-level statement which can come up, which is non-controversial and many may agree to. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mahesh, Mr. Mahesh.
Yeah, actually, I already covered this particular portion in my previous talk, but still would like to comment on the term that, as I said, it's not all about addressing one problem. It is all about creating an ecosystem around this. So it's a chicken and egg story, basically. So let us take a classic example of Google, okay? And the Google initially started paying to people for validating the content, basically, and then further they stopped. What I understand that they have created a platform where people can start using that, okay? So they created a platform, they reach out to the people, they reach out. So Google is at every house today. So everybody talks about Google. So created a platform, and so they created a need in that regard. A similar way, a need needs to be created in terms of the Indian languages. And as I said to you, it is a technology driven, it is something called a policy driven, and it is something called a political will. So all these three aspects are very, very important. At a country level or at a global level, we can try to collaborate with the countries which are having similar languages, what we have done for the internationalized domain names. So when we say that, because basically most of the SAARC region, okay, are using or having similar languages, or our Indian languages nature, whatever is there, is being shared across so many countries, okay. So I think that also is a major point wherein we try to leverage upon their best practices, what they are trying to do in terms of how they would like to promote the languages, and try to bring the people who are unreached into a reachable state, basically. Now, as far as the data generation is concerned, the government, the Bhashini program started with this same aspect, that they talked about Bhasha, they talk about data, what is contributing the data. Okay, Now the question comes over here is that what is the motivation for anybody to contribute to data? So again, there are some challenges associated with this particular position, but those can be resolved, and the government can actually previously also the mentorship. The government can lead by example. Okay, that's very important, because even if you today see that, why not the government of India, all the websites, 8,000, 9,000 websites be in all Indian languages, all the services which are being rendered to the citizens be in all Indian languages. Let it be Aadhaar, let it be Election Commission of India, let it be public distribution systems, let it be e-courts, let it be e-health. I think it's a massive list to work on that basically, and automatically data is going to get generated, and this will pump the models which was being shown by Satish Babuji in terms of the chat GPT. The chat GPT is a boon as well as a curse. Both things are there within that. But let us look at the boon part of it at this moment of time, because India being a multilingual country, I think almost 78% of the people stay in villages. Okay, and 92% of the people don't understand English. And out of that 92%, 36.5% people cannot read and write their own languages. I think we have to see to it that what technology readiness is there, where we can bring these people in the whole mainstream. Availability and affordable computing is an important word over here. That if you talk about multilingual, does a person have to pay for using multilingual tools? I think we should look at this aspect very carefully, because if it comes like it's all time available, it's like a oxygen, then people will start realizing the importance of Indian languages, and things will improve definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. Unikrishnan, Satish sir will just, I think the chat GPT is back online. So I'll request Satish sir to share his.
Oh yes.
Unikrishnan, yeah.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, yes, sir. We are able to see.
So here is the response from ChatGPT. It says, as a language model, I strive to remain neutral, etc. Then it goes on to quote several of the tweets that Musk has said, and finally, there's a conclusion which says that these elections were somewhat enigmatic and did not express a clear stand on the candidates or the election process. This itself is quite valuable, actually. But we said summarize the above analysis. So ChatGPT summarized the analysis. Then we said translate the above summary into Hindi. So it has done it, and it's actually not a bad job. I mean, my knowledge of Hindi is not that strong, but it is much better than other languages, Indian languages. To do just these three things manually would have taken us a whole lot of time. So this is, and as Mahesh just mentioned, there are lots of our people who cannot read English. So it is very useful for all of them to kind of get a summary like this in seconds. So back to you, Prashant.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think we are running a little short of time. Just one point, you are all talking about the Bhashini and all. So in the C20 scheme of things, there is a very big scope for what we call as udaharans or examples. So are there something, in India, like the Bhashini or related initiatives that can be kind of replicated as a use case or a success story for not only the G20, but also emerging economies, so as to speak?
I think Mahesh can answer this.
Yeah, actually, there are a couple of programs which Government of India has initiated, which can be replicated across the globe. And especially I was talking about that almost like 20 years back itself, there was a so-called conference which was held between the SAARC region, especially to work on the multilingual tools and technologies, and that was quite successful. So the Bhashini program is a culmination of so many projects together today. So as I explained to you, there are various projects which have been initiated, and like a mission mode projects. If you have heard about the machine translation activities, there was a winter period. The European Commission has stopped funding, basically, especially for the machine assisted translation system, just because the outcomes were not good enough. But with the advent of the technology and the advent of the GPU computing power and the data sets, things have definitely changed, basically. But the Indian government still continue to fund that. And as was been earlier indicated, that for some of the languages which didn't have content so far, that also work been started basically. Like if you really look at it, some of the languages like Bodo, Santali, Maithili, Dogri, these are the languages which are the part of official 22 languages, but they don't have that much of content. So it becomes a responsibility of the state governments to look at those contents. And National Machine Translation Mission is one example, basically, which can be replicated across. I can definitely, I'm very proud to say that the work what we did for the universal acceptance, it has become a role model for the globe to follow. I think Satish Babu can vouch for it, that the Indian language scripts have been complex in nature, and we cater to both the writing styles, basically left to right to left, and these are all syllabic in nature. Okay, unlike the Chinese, basically, because they are ideographic script basically. So it's a non-linear script, and we were able to make a policy around that, and I think this policy has led to the a fast track in terms of development of a root zone label generation rules, regulations, the variant generation rules which are there. So I think there was a lot of learning which the whole globe has undertaken with our work, especially. I hope means this might sound to be a bold statement, but it is a true statement, and there are a lot of things which we can leverage from other countries as well, and vice versa. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we are running short of time. I take this opportunity to thank our distinguished panelists, Mr. Satish Babu, Mr. Mahesh Kulkarni, and Ms. Amrita Chowdhury. Thank you so much. We are looking forward to your support. Actually, interestingly, we are also deliberating on whether we can do some initiatives to help CSOs in the space of internet governance, not only internet governance, cyber security, safety, security. We've got a lot of good inputs from Sajid sir also. We look forward to your inputs. Thank you very much. We have a mix of, there are some CSOs, there are some few of our faculty also are there, some of our working group members are also here, a few students are also here. I take this opportunity to thank all of them for their presence. Thank you very much, and we look forward to the support of the C20 working groups, especially our group on technology, security, and transparency. Thank you very much. Good night and bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.